Hi, and welcome to another episode of She Leads Biotech, the podcast where we celebrate the achievements of women in the life sciences. Today's guests are sisters, coaches, and co-founders of the Arthur Leadership Group, a firm dedicated to helping women in biotech, medtech, and life sciences lead with authenticity, resilience, and impact. With over 20 years each in leadership and organizational development, they've guided hundreds of women, from senior executives to first-time founders, through the challenges of visibility, self-doubt, burnout, and balance. We've all been there, right? In this conversation, we explore what it means to lead as your authentic self, the double bind of being likable and competent, and how women can quiet the inner critic, build high-performing teams, and reclaim time, energy, and confidence in fast-paced biotech environments. So please welcome the co-founders of Arthur Leadership Group, Amy and Melissa Arthur. Well, hello, ladies.
Hello,
Hi,
Sharron.
Sharron.
Hi, Amy.
Yeah, do you two know each other by chance? I'm not sure.
We might have met 50 years ago.
Yeah, not spoken since.
She wasn't too happy when I came along.
That's a whole different story. I'd love to do that. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time out to spend some time with us talking about your work. But before we get into that, and we've kind of already just touched on it, you're co-founders of the Arthur Consulting Group. Is that correct? It's
Arthur Leadership Group.
Arthur Leadership Group. Your sisters and co-founders. How does that work? Because I'll be honest, I can't be in a room with my sister. So was it something you decided, was an active decision to do? Did you both have your own things going on? Well, how did you come together to do this?
So we've been in partnership for 50 years and I've had all kinds of wild adventures. Entrepreneurship is probably the wildest one so far, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So we have both been in leadership development for over 20 years and wound up working on the same coaching team, Amy for the last 7 years and me for about the last 5. And really just our interest in serving women just grew. And as we got more training and got more clear about what we're passionate about in that area, we just decided that it's time for us to form our own entity and create the programs and the services and the way that we want to do it.
You focus specifically on biotech and the medtech world. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's kind of where you sit. What drew you to that sector?
Well, I have just enough science background to be dangerous. I've worked in a molecular diagnostics lab and have worked in healthcare for a short time, but really my passion is in leadership development and personal development. So Amy and I have been serving on a coaching team as part of a women's associate resource group in a global 150 life sciences, diagnostics, and medtech company for about the last 5 to 7 years. And Amy initiated this work as a result of networking with another woman at a women's coaching facilitation program. And
as you do, that's how these things happen.
Exactly. So that's kind of how it got started. And we just really, really love working with this demographic. They're brilliant. They are so purpose-driven and doing amazing work in the world. It's just taken. So for the last few years, that's been our primary audience.
Before we move on into the work you do, I'm interested to know how your own career experiences shape the way that you now guide other women through theirs. Amy, was there anything specific on that?
Yes. I would say I spent, a good decade in corporate before I decided to start my own coaching and consulting business about 20 years ago. And what caused me to decide to do that was that I had seen enough examples of leaders who could just be better at what they were doing. And not understanding the unintended consequences or perhaps intended consequences at times of their leadership. And I got really interested in organizational dynamics and organization development and teams and leadership and all of that. And so ended up getting my master's in organizational communication and have been doing that work ever since with organizations in all different sectors, and most recently the last 10 years or so in life sciences and diagnostics and biotech.
Okay, cool. So you offer a number of services in what you do, but can you talk me through the basics of what your services are that you offer?
Yeah, so our core service offerings are three things. We do executive coaching, and that is really mostly centered on women leaders. And we work with senior leaders, we work with female founders, we work with women who are emerging leaders and potentially in their first role as a leader. We do development workshops around that and group coaching programs for women in STEM. And so that's one piece of what we do. We also do leadership development workshops and trainings and retreats. And then we also focus on high performing team alignment. And that's something that we have added more recently in a new way, but I've been work with teams for 20 years. So we know that in order to change a culture, you really have to work with more than just the individual. And so oftentimes we'll have an individual client who asks us to come in and work with their team. And we work with leadership teams, project teams, cross-functional and global teams, and really helping them to operate at their highest level and potential. It's one thing that is more predictable in an environment that is a lot about managing risk. If you know that your team is functioning well and high performing, then you can really do a lot of things and a lot of incredible things under a lot of pressure and the rapid change that everybody finds themselves in this day and age.
Right. And Melissa, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so our team alignment program really focuses on 6 key areas. So the roles and strengths, the vision of the team, really powerful communication, productive conflict, accountability and results, and trust and psychological safety. So we found in our work that those are the key areas that all teams need. We love to do that work as they're building, as kind of more of a vitamin to set them up to be super resilient as the pressure builds and as things change. We can also come in and do that work when signs start to show that things aren't going so well on the team.
Sure.
And then in the women's STEM work that we do through one-on-one coaching and also in group programs, that work is organized around 3 key areas. You know, each of us has spent thousands of hours one-on-one with hundreds of women and have seen the kinds of things that come up in these environments. And we've developed a framework that includes leadership development, but also personal development and health and wellness as well.
For women who are watching or listening to this, what would you say, what are those patterns that keep showing up for women in leadership so that somebody can actually go, oh, that's me, because we don't recognize it in ourselves until we hear that's, oh yeah, that there's is there something that you guys see time and time again that you know, oh yeah, this is a pattern?
Absolutely. So there are 3 areas that we see are needed in order for a professional to feel whole and use their strengths and their talents in the best way possible, and also, you know, manage their career and balance their life in the way that works for them. So the first one is that internal strength and clarity. So having a vision for your life and your career that's aligned with your values, and managing self-doubt, confidence, those kinds of things are really important.
That imposter syndrome thing that
absolutely
seems to attack women more than anything else. So, okay.
Yeah. So then the second one is external influence and impact. So how are we using our voices? How are we making our great work and our strengths visible in the work environment? And how are we building a village and a network around us that's going to support us along the way? And then the third one is sustainable momentum. So that's kind of the ongoing balance between vitality and velocity, where how do we manage our time, our energy, our vital life force in order to move our career and our goals forward at a pace that is sustainable and considers, the whole picture of our life and how we envision it.
Anything to add to that, Amy?
Yes, I would say we do see recurring themes coming up in all of those areas. And lately, the one around imposter syndrome or self-doubt, that can always come up. We often have an inner critic that is, on our shoulder, that's speaking into our ear and holding us back from being our best. And so we work a lot with women on that voice of self-doubt. And how do you quiet that and be able to really tap into your inner mentor and that inner wisdom that we all have? Women are really great at having intuition, and it's about learning how to follow that, even in a high pressure situation or the middle of rapid change or having to make a tough decision. And so really helping to coach and guide women in those areas. And then another thing that we see a lot of is, a need for helping with workload and managing priorities and burnout and overwhelm and all of that. This last year especially has been a really tough one for almost everyone.
Me, I'm burnt out.
Yes. And so tools and strategies for managing that and having that work-life harmony, integrating between those two things, because women play a lot of different roles, and we have to be able to identify what's going to work best for us and how can we have a high, achieving career, but then also, have the other parts of our lives that we enjoy. And so we work with women a lot on those kinds of things. And then other things like asking for help or, people-pleasing tendencies, boundaries, all those different kinds of things that come up in coaching in different various, scenarios. And then leadership skills, how do you go in and be the only woman at the table or one of few women at the table and really have that executive presence and that leadership presence, or your personal brand. How do you want to show up in your strengths and as an authentic leader, making decisions and communicating with power. All of those kinds of things come up in coaching.
Because that's, my whole life I've encountered this for myself and seen it with other women, is that it's getting that balance right, where you can be assertive, you can be powerful without people labeling you a bitch or, what's her problem? And it's not, at first I thought it was just like it was a male-female thing, but it's not. I encountered it with other women saying the same thing. And then there almost becomes this sort of pecking thing for somebody to be sitting there. I've spoken to women who find themselves sitting at the table thinking, am I going to be too much when I say this? Or am I not going to be powerful enough? How do you help women like that? What's your advice to them? This week's episode of She Leads Biotech is brought to you by Facilitate, the team behind Advanced Therapies Week, the biggest event for the global cell and gene therapy community. Join over 2,000 leaders in San Diego, February 9th to 12th, for high-value networking, bold ideas, and real connection. Don't miss the Women in Advanced Therapies Congress, a powerful space for women and allies to share stories, insights, and support. Visit facilitate.com/Advanced Therapies Week and use She Leads 20 for 20% off your ticket. That's SHELEADS 20. See you in San Diego.
Well, there's a double bind that we talk about for women, and that is needing to be both likable and competent and show up in both of those ways. And it's a very fine line and balance that we have to walk in our culture. It's not fair that it's that way, in my opinion, anyway.
But it is what it is, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
And so we have to work within the cultures that we're working in and try to change them at the same time. Right. So that's a lot of what we work with women on. But really, how do you show up as likable without being, a doormat? And how do you show up as competent without being labeled aggressive or that kind of thing? And it's a really, really tough balance, but we have different tools and strategies that we use with women to help them even just weave in some warmth and some trust building in the beginning of a meeting or a conversation, so that you're building that relationship and that trust with whoever it is that you're talking with or presenting to, so that you can really show up as your authentic self, right? That's what we always want our clients to do, is show up from their own strengths and not feel like they have to be somebody that they're not.
Also, it's perception as well, though, isn't it? Maybe the woman is projecting perfectly fine. She's a strong character. I mean, I only speak for myself. I've got a loud voice and don't really care what I say in most instances, which is why I get on better in the US than I did in the UK. So, but that's neither here nor there. And I'm sure that there are people whose perception of me is not the reality. And through my own kind of workings, I came to terms with that. I'm not going to please everybody. Not everybody's going to like me, but I like me. And if nothing else, I'm authentic. I'm me. I'm showing up as me. This is what you see is what you get. And I think if women can, it sounds like through your service with women, it's that coming to that realization. This is who I am and this is who I'm happy with, right?
Absolutely. Getting grounded in your own strength and in your own power, and letting go of some of the ideas that, well, we were taught a leader is only powerful and strategic and direct and all of these things. And we're seeing, you could do a quick review of the leadership literature, and the empathy, the connection, all of these skills that women are particularly good at are driving change and are very much part of what we're recognizing as solid, good leadership. And so helping women to come into their own authentic, like you're saying, their own authentic way of leading that they own and that they feel really grounded and secure in is a big part of our work. And then also helping them to just normalize, this is the system. This isn't everything that comes at you in terms of feedback isn't necessarily even about you. And so helping women receive feedback from a place of power and be in a position to make conscious decisions about whether or not, whether the feedback comes from their inner critic or whether it comes from an outer critic, how to stay grounded in this is who I am, and I'm standing by myself and with myself and deploying myself as the best leader I can be despite the noise.
What do you women take to the coaching? Obviously, they feel there is a need, because otherwise they wouldn't be reaching out to you in the first place. Is it something that your clients warm to immediately? Or is there some resistance, oh no, that's not me, and having to kind of come to that realization? How does the process work out? Whoever wants to take that one.
Well, coaching is a very unique relationship, and it's such an honor and a pleasure to get to be in human conversation in a coaching container for us. We love it. And when people come in, sometimes if they haven't been through coaching, they have an expectation that we're going to do more consulting, we're going to do mentoring, we're going to tell them what to do, and maybe even try to change them in a way that they're not ready to be changed. But very quickly, when we set up the coaching relationship, I think that once they get their heart and mind wrapped around what's possible within that, is that it's really about the client. It's about what the client needs, what the client wants, helping them to access their own internal resources and wisdom and to do what's best for them. I could give advice all day, but it's never as good as what you, who are the expert in your own life, are going to come to in the context of a really solid coaching container with the guidance that that system provides. And I think a lot of women come to coaching feeling like they're the only one who's experiencing these things. And experiencing a lot of shame around any place that they're not thriving or having it together. And so I think these conversations that are just really about you and your thriving and your goals, and there's a lot of understanding and empathy in the coaching process as well, just helps us to feel better, helps us to feel more connected and more clear about who we are.
And it's an ever evolving thing, isn't it? There's no set pattern. Okay, we're going to start this on day 1, and then by session 25 or whatever, it's all going to have clicked. There's different things that move that path along, which I just want to go back, Amy, to where you were talking about it's been a tough year this year, and for women recognizing that. And I speak personally with this, is that when times get tough from a business perspective and things are harder, there is that temptation that you feel that more time needs to be spent on the business. I need to be doing 16 hours a day to make this happen, at the expense of personal time, at the expense of other things that you would normally do. I've lost count how many times this year people have said, oh, we'll go and do our normal stuff. No, I can't do that. I've got clients that I'm speaking to, or I've got things that I'm doing. What would you say to me about, yes, the business is important, but so are you as an individual? Is that something that you're seeing more of, or that you anticipate seeing more of?
Yes, definitely. And usually what it comes down to is boundaries. And that can be a difficult thing for women. And I have to admit, I struggle with that sometimes myself. And so oftentimes I see, things in my clients that are things that I've struggled with or dealt with in my own life, which is really affirming to them, because I'm willing to be vulnerable and share with them, what's going on in my life sometimes. But what I really think we have to focus on is, what are those top priorities, and how do you get clear on what those are? And then how do you set some parameters around, what am I willing to say yes to? What am I willing to say no? Or what do I need to say no to, even though I might be more likely to be in that people pleaser mode and say yes too much? And we work on strategies for, how can you really look at the bigger picture of everything that's going on, and then create something that feels more sustainable to you, because we can't operate at our best if we're just constantly giving and giving and giving and not filling our own cups. And so a lot of it is working on that piece as well.
And it's coming to that realization, isn't it? Rather than, oh, okay, I won't do this work, I will go and do that. But you go and do something else, and you're resenting it the whole time that you're doing it. Is equally, it's just as bad, if not worse, than if you just stayed at your desk and carried on doing what you were doing, right?
Yes. Yeah. And oftentimes it's a shift in identity that we need to make, right? Of like kind of an old story that we've been telling ourselves, and limiting beliefs that are underlying that we've got to uncover in order to really figure out, okay, so what's the new story? What's more empowering way to look at this? And how do I want to show up in my leadership and in the world and in my organization in a new and different way that feels like who I want to be going forward, who I'm becoming versus who I was maybe even a year or two ago.
Yeah. Okay. And you've seen in the work that you've done, you guys have seen from both sides, leaders who are inside established companies, as well as first-time founders finding their way. What's the biggest mindset gap that you have found between those two areas, Melissa?
I think that the arc of someone's career has a lot of different phases, whether they're in a startup or in a more established company. And it feels to me like what we see in the beginning is leaders really focused on the science. When you're a founder, when you're getting a startup off the ground, focused on the science, focused on building the plane in the air, focused on getting the funding. Everybody's there. Everybody's doing everything, often doing things that you're learning how to do for the first time. And it's a really exciting time. And it's all hands on deck. No matter what, we're going to get this thing built, right? And then there are other places where I was just talking to a startup founder friend the other day, and she said, well, we used to just have 5 people at our table and we'd all make decisions together, and that worked great. And we just brought on 16 more people. And so it leads into, okay, as we grow, we've really got to set our team up for success. And oftentimes in biotech, people have spent many, many years getting technical training, but haven't had the experience or the opportunity to learn how to be leaders. Yep. And how to run teams, how to set up teams in a way that is going to work for the long term and bear the roller coaster ride that these startups can sometimes take you on. So learning how to lead and recognizing that the playbook for leading people is a very different playbook from leading technical projects is a mindset shift that happens sort of mid-career. And also just that balance between velocity and vitality and understanding, okay, when I was in my 20s and I was starting this thing, it was okay for me to spend all of my time working. And now I have other things in my life that I want to make sure I'm finding a little bit more balance around. And then, as leaders mature and develop and come into their own and feel more secure about what it is who they are as leaders and building those skills, they go into a time often later in their career around moving from achievement to self-actualization. So it becomes less about just climbing the ladder and getting to the next, highest position, and more about, who did I come here to be? And how am I going to be fully myself and use all the gifts that I've been given in this phase in my life? And so lots of different ways that women orient to their careers at different times.
And is this, I know we touched on it at the beginning of the conversation, your career catalyst model. Mm-hmm. Is that the kind of thing that you're talking about with this now? I know we touched on it. Is there a more sort of in-depth example you can give me of how women would benefit from this career catalyst model?
So the power of the Career Catalyst program that we run is that it brings women together who are working on some of the same things and sometimes different areas. So when women come together in a group, and they each have their own career pathway, they each have their own goals, but they see each other having successes and overcoming challenges that maybe help them to see that they themselves could overcome those challenges. They get to mentor each other. Maybe someone in the group is going through something another woman has been through before, and she can really give that real world experience in addition to the professional coaching that happens in that container. So each person gets to work on one of those areas: values, vision, voice, visibility, village, vitality, or velocity, and go through a process to make progress in the way that's most important to them. So the flexibility of that and just the support of having both professional coaching and other women in the group to walk with you just really helps combat that isolation and the things that we tell ourselves when we feel like we're failing, that we can be mirrored and reflected for our strengths and our talents, and we can be supported when we're feeling like we need that support.
So is a group program as opposed to one-on-one? Is it virtual? Is it in person? Do you all go out into the woods and yell at the sky and stuff like that? I don't know.
If I had my way, we'd get to go out in the woods.
You can tell I'm a city person, can't you? I'm like, I struggle walking through a park. I'm a bit like, oh no, it's too much greenery around me. I don't know, I might get lost. But in seriousness, how does that work so that women can get the most from it?
Yeah, it's an online program for the most part that people come from different areas of the country, even, all over the world, come together for the program. And
lovely.
Then sometimes we have local groups that want to run one for a group of women in their area as well.
Right. Because I love the online thing. And obviously without the online opportunity, I wouldn't be able to do this podcast, because I don't think everybody would travel to Great Neck, New York to come and see me every time. So, and I get that. But there's really nothing quite like a in-person meeting people, really, is there? So does your group give that opportunity? Obviously it does, because you've touched on it, for like-minded people to say, oh look, we'll get a little subgroup going, and it, even if it's over a cocktail or over lunch or something can really start to deepen those relationships, I feel.
Yes, definitely. I've run a couple of different women's leadership collaboratives here in my local community. And you're right, it is very powerful to have people together and be working together over time on, their goals. And as Melissa said, it's like exponential how when you get a group of women together, the magic that happens in just really supporting each other, cheering each other on, seeing each other's successes, being vulnerable and talking about what's not working and problem solving together. All of those kinds of things are really beautiful. But it's amazing how you can really create that online as well. And I'm always amazed when I get on a Zoom call, and I see all the faces and how Melissa and I are trained facilitators in leading group coaching. And so we've got all kinds of different activities and ways of approaching it to really build the best possible scenario that we can when it is virtual. And I love that you said the thing about, going into the woods, because I live in the woods. I live in the mountains of Colorado. And that's one of the things that is on my vision board, is to eventually start to lead retreats, personal retreats for corporate women, where they can come and get away and be in the mountains and enjoy nature and have some personal development time and some social time and all of that. So stay tuned on that, because that'll be coming here in the next couple of years.
You might even get me to come. You might even,
I would love
come
it.
along. Yay! I always wanted to howl at the moon or something. But I've spoken to I've spoken to a number of women actually who've done these kind of retreats, and I've had the conversation with them before. I'm going on this retreat, I'm leaving my phone behind, I'm doing this, I won't be contactable. And I'm like, oh my lordy, I don't know about that. When they've come back, speaking to, there's a visual difference about them. I have to say, you can feel and see the difference of just 48 hours of being present. I think that's the kind of feedback that they've given me. It was just, I felt present in what I was doing, and notice things like that the grass is moist or the trees are, things that we just don't even take any notice of, as well as the things that are inside ourselves. So I'm definitely up for that, Amy. Let me know if that happens. You might have me kicking and screaming, clinging to my phone, but stick with me, make me do it. Well, listen, ladies, we're in 2026, put 2025 behind us. What would you say for women who are, this is what I need to really get my year off to a start? How do they get to know more about your work and what you do? What's the best way for them to find out what's going on?
We would love to have an opportunity to get to know your listeners and to really talk with them and support them to get this 2026 off to a great start. And so you can find us on our website, which is arthurleadershipgroup.com. But we want to invite you to email us if you have questions, and to receive a couple of gifts that we've put together just specifically for your audience.
Love gifts.
It's just like Oprah.
Is it a car?
You get one. You get a car.
Are we having an Oprah moment?
So the first one is called a Power Partnerships Activation Guide. It's a PDF, and it takes you through the vocabulary of defining what support you need. Because I think as women, we're often supporting everybody else, and we don't even know how to define the support that we need. So that's the first part of it. And then the second part of it is about activating power partnerships. So a really unique kind of relationship that recognizes that we can really be with each other in our highest vision and our biggest goals, and share resources and inspiration along the way in a really powerful way. So that will come if you email us, as well as a link to book a complimentary Career Catalyst session, where we will talk with you about what your vision is for this year and really help to set you up to be ready to know what you need, know how to get the support that you need, and be really clear about how you're going to approach the year. And so,
fantastic.
Yeah, our email's in the show notes, and you're welcome to email either one of us. ask us any questions you have, or just say, hey, I'd like my gifts, please.
Well, I'll make sure that we certainly get that promoted when we start to get the show information out there. And I really hope that large numbers of women do avail themselves of what you do. I've heard of your work. I've spoken to women that you've kindly referred to me, and they have spoken very, very positively about the work that you've done with them. So I would love as many women as possible to experience that, and your very kind gifts will certainly enable them to do that. So we'll make sure that as many are aware of it as we possibly can. Amy, Melissa, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today, and let's hope that 2026 is the year we want it to be for all of us and for all of the women that we work with in some capacity or other.
Thank you, Sharron. We are all in it together, so let's not hesitate to reach out and continue to support each other.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Sharron. It's been a pleasure being on your podcast. Thanks for having us.
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me for this episode of She Leads Biotech. If today's story inspired you, subscribe, follow, and comment, because when one woman's voice is heard, many more find theirs. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and keep leading.